A common feature of the annual fairs of towns and villages in the old days was horse racing. There are famous examples at Beath, also another one at Sturton, and the surviving one is at Irvine at Merrimus, where they have one on the Cadger's course. They even have a Shire or Clydesdale horse race there as well, said to be one of the oldest racecourses in Britain. But most have died out. This site here is the one that was at Mauchline. This runs along the old parish boundary. In fact, Mossgiel, Robert Burns' old home, is just over the horizon there. Along this stretch, the horses would race from down by what is now the National Burns Memorial, from what's called the millstone that no longer seems to survive, run along here, and they would turn round about the entry here to this old farm. Along the route, there were a couple of interesting place names. There was somewhere just in this vicinity here was the Lousy Bush. That's said to have been named after the fact that there were beggars who used to congregate there. It was a very prominent hawthorn tree, now sadly gone, but marked on the Ordnance Survey map. Burns is said to have called it that, but there is suggestions that it was called that beforehand. Further down the road, where the road curves, was the Drunken Steps. It's a bit of a curiosity because there's a famous Drunken Steps in Irvine at Eglinton Country Park, where Robert Burns is said to have decided to one Sunday when walking in the woods to have become a poet. The steps here were called that because it was an untarmacked road, and the small stream that went across eroded the stones, leaving large blocks. The steps themselves were possibly called that because either when people crossed them, it looked as though they were drunk, staggering from one stone to the next, or it's said that people who were actually drunk would be lucky to make it across without getting wet. This is the site of the Drunken Steps, or Drunken Steps. These horse races were taking place certainly in the mid-18th century. The horses that were involved were called hacks. That name comes from Hackney in London. Basically, it's horses that were used for leisure, so they weren't bred as race horses. It's thought that the races finally petered out around about the 1930s. Now, another claim to fame here is that the fair that took place in April, the Mauchline Fair, is where Robert Burns first met Jean Armour. This is Mossgiel Farm here. There's practically nothing left of the farm that Burns knew, but he said that he greatly enjoyed watching the races along the road here. We now have quite a complex of Burns memorabilia here with the tower and with the Burns homes.